Good morning. Thank you for having me.
Absolutely. Tell us about the Interface Financial Group.
Well, we are a company who provides working capital to small businesses who may or may not be able to qualify for bank financing by purchasing a portion of their accounts receivable on an as-needed basis, and that provides them with the cash they need up front to continue to expand and prosper.
I've heard about this before. Is this something fairly new? How long has this been around?
Actually, our company has been around since 1972.
Is that fairly new to you, Mike?
No, not quite. So this concept has been around for a long time.
It has. It's not a well-known process because most small businesses, when they need money, go to the bank.
Right.
But we're there to fill in the gaps if they can't get their financing from the banks.
All right. So how does it work? Do you service just certain areas? Are you nationwide?
Yes, I'm glad you asked that. We have over 100 offices across the United States, as well as another 50 offices in 8 other countries outside of the U.S.
Wow, international. So you mentioned that people come to you after they go to the bank. So I'm a small business owner. Talk about my process and what the bank is looking for and why the bank might not always be the best source of capital, and therefore why coming to you is a good alternative for a small business owner.
Okay, well, we predominantly service B2B companies, so companies that are selling their products and services, at least a portion of them, to other businesses, and ones that do that on a payment terms, so they don't get paid right away. When small businesses go to a bank for a loan, generally they have to be in business for at least 2 years before they can do that. Other times that we're helpful to companies, the small businesses, is when they hit a growth spurt. They may have maxed out that line of credit or maxed out their ability to get a loan. That's where we can step in and hopefully help them out.
How does your service compare to other alternate funding type services?
Well, we have what we like to call the invoice finance marketplace. And what I mean by that is not only am I and my company putting money in on every single transaction that we do with the clients, but we also have institutional investors who participate and put their money in as well, which is why we're able to provide funding anywhere from $10,000 up to $10 million in any one individual transaction.
So for these B2B companies that are your typical client, sounds like, Erin, they obviously need to have some receivables, a lot of receivables. So you're kind of putting yourself out there a little bit as well, because you want to make if that company doesn't get paid, you're not getting paid.
Right, and that's where we could help out with the clients in picking invoices that they have with customers who are reputable. So generally, we're more concerned about their end customer, whether they are a company. And a lot of times with the businesses we help out, their end customer is a larger company than they are.
Erin, when companies come to you and they're looking for alternative funding, what are some of the situations that you've found them in? You kind of mentioned they've maxed out their line of credit and stuff. So is it more that, hey, I'm got a strategic opportunity and I really need to take advantage of this opportunity? All the way down to, in my mind, one of the things that comes to my mind is I'm just trying to keep the doors open. What are some of the main circumstances you come across, and what are some of the best circumstances for small business owners that they need to be calling you?
Well, one of the biggest barriers to growth for small businesses is that they don't have access to cash. They're constantly waiting on getting paid by their customers, and they're constantly being asked to pay their suppliers or their providers. So for us, where we're able to provide the most value is generally a growth company, somebody who's experiencing tremendous growth. They're still a small business, but they have their sights set on being a larger business, and they just can't do it without having the cash there. The other thing we can help out is, I mentioned before that some companies, before they're 2 years old, they can't necessarily get a loan, or not at least the size that they would like. So a company that's been in business, let's say 4 months, and they've got good business going, and they want to continue that, then we're the ones that can step in and help.
So to make it very simple, you're getting them the cash that they should be getting, you're just getting it to them faster.
Correct. So what we'll do is we'll purchase the invoice from them, and we will provide them a certain percentage up front so they have access to that cash. And then at the end, when the customer pays, we get our fee and give them the small remainder after that.
Does your client, do they still invoice their clients, or do you take over the invoicing?
So that's where we differ a little bit from some of the other companies in the industry. A traditional factoring company would be the name of what you may be asking about. They typically take over the entire invoicing process and collections and accounts receivable management. We're more of a use-it-as-you-need-it service. So if they want to sell us one invoice one time and never see us ever again, that's perfectly fine. Or if they just need help every once in a while, we can help as well.
have a question for you. I've owned several small businesses, and I'm asking this question because I think that it's one that needs to be asked. When is the best time for a small business owner to contact you? Because when I was in business, waiting till I was to the point where I was desperate was never a time when I would make the best choices. So at what point do you suggest a small business owner actually contact you in the process?
Well, probably like any business, the earlier the better. We can help them out in any number of situations, but I guess the ideal thing would be if they had the foresight to know that they were going to want to expand and that they probably wouldn't be able to get that financing from the bank. Talking to someone such as myself would be a good idea so they can have us in the hopper if they ever need us.
So would you say at a point maybe where they were the business was starting to run them, is that a good place for them to start thinking, maybe I better talk to somebody?
Absolutely, especially if they find themselves having a lot of people calling them asking for money and not having a lot of checks coming in because their customers are taking their time paying them.
Yeah, so if they need the money like tomorrow, to call you today, say, I need it to, that's not going to work. But generally, how quickly can they get funding?
Depending upon the data that we need from them, initially it can take generally about a week, but after the first funding, we can do it in as little as 24 hours.
It sounds like if I'm a small business owner and I'm starting to get into a phase of growth, as soon as I start to see that growth happen, it's a good idea to start looking at least what's out there and start the relationship. If they can get most of the paperwork done ahead of time and just kind of, I like what you said, as needed basis. So you should always be exploring what's out there as a small business owner. I mean, would you agree that as you're changing your planning and as you're looking at growing, it's probably a good idea to at least start a conversation with you and see what's out there?
Absolutely. We have a one-page application. We do a 20-minute phone call and decide if it's something that they're interested in. They fill that out, give us a little bit of information on their company. We have a couple conversations, and then that's it. So there's no pressure, no long-term contracts, no minimums or anything. So to your point, it can't hurt to at least try it out.
Well, and I think that's good. Obviously, what you're talking about, a one-page and a 20-minute conversation, and you said no pressure. So that led me into this question. I wanted to ask this question. You guys are in alternative funding. Okay, I think if we're sitting in a room full of business owners, they're all listening to this show, and when you say alternative funding, I'd love to know what your thought of the percentage of business owners who go, or they have horrible images, right? Because there's connotations around that phrasing. So like the sign of Subaru of Gwinnett, Atlanta that soothes me, I'm going to give you the chance to soothe the room of business owners and let them know, and you've done it already with a lot of your answers, but give us some nice warm fuzzies about how we shouldn't be scared of that term.
Well, I would say that there are a myriad of different versions of alternative funding.
And that's what causes the problem, right? Because there are some bad apples in that bunch.
Absolutely, unfortunately. You can probably say that about a lot of industries.
You can say that about any industry, Erin, okay? Don't martyr yourself too much there. Every industry has bad apples. So talk about why you're the good apples and the good apples in that industry.
Well, one thing that attracted me to the Interface Financial Group joining this organization is that it truly is no pressure. So you can fill out the application. If you get approved, it's your choice if you ever want to sell us any invoices. There's no hidden fees. We tell you exactly up front what it's going to cost you, and it's your choice.
You mentioned earlier, and we're talking with Erin Riley with the Interface Financial Group here on Gwinnett Business Radio. You mentioned doing business with B2B companies. Are there other typical industries that you like to do business with or have found yourself doing a lot of business with?
Well, we do business, like I said, with B2B companies, pretty much any company that provides a portion of their products or services to other businesses on payment terms. But where we got our start 43 years ago was actually in the construction industry, which is fairly unique in the financing world. Most financing companies won't touch construction, but that's where we got our start because there were subcontractors out there who couldn't move on to the next project until they got paid by the general contractor, or construction firms that were in the same boat. So by us buying the invoices on the front end, they can expand and go on to that next project and not have to wait until they get paid.
And you mentioned you are attracted to the company for a lot of the reasons that you've already explained. Tell us about Erin yourself and your background.
Sure. My background, I have a accounting and finance kind of a background. I've been in several different industries. I self-diagnosed ADD kind of a person that I get bored easily. So I've been in the energy industry, banking software, retail, manufacturing, you name it. So that's kind of where I got my taste of wanting to help out small businesses.
And the company's been around for a while, so you have a track record. I mean, obviously that says a lot right there.
Absolutely. They started out in, like I said, in construction, and they've grown to where we're in a total of 9 countries now. So
great stuff. For Erin, for those out there that would like to find out more, maybe look into using your services, where can they get all this information?
They can either call me directly or they can go to the website, which is probably easier, www.interfacefinancial.com. And if they want to see my specific information, they just add a /Riley, Riley, to the end of that.
Easy enough. Erin Riley with the Interface Financial Group. Thanks so much for your time and explaining it. And, it's something that I never understood at all, and now I have a real clear picture. Thank you so much.
Sure.